Welcome. My name's Jeremy, and I'll be leading the tonight and next Monday night. And also on Wednesday we're doing some Chenrezig meditation. And our theme is compassion, the practice of love and compassion. And so we'll be focusing on that. So what I was hoping we would cover in the next 2 Monday night sessions is to get a clear idea about what the practice of love and compassion is, and what the definitions of love and compassion, what we're talking about, and what some misconceptions about what those terms mean, and also focusing on the benefits of the practice of love and compassion for ourselves and for others. And then we'll do some meditation also. So some of the techniques we can use for developing the attitudes of love and compassion. So these are attitudes that we all have in our mind. You shouldn't think that you don't have any love and compassion. Some people do think that, but we all have that, and it's just qualities that we have and that we can develop. So these sessions are meant to be fairly informal and relaxed. So feel free to ask questions, and you don't have to disagree with everything I say. So feel free to let me know, challenge what I say. The Buddha encouraged that. He didn't want people agreeing with him unless they really felt that what he was saying was made sense. So we'll start by defining love and compassion. So as you may know, in the Buddhist tradition at least, so love is defined as the wish that others are happy. And then compassion is like the flip side of that, wishing that others be free of suffering or unhappiness. So that's what we're talking about. And also, these are also attitudes that we can have towards ourselves. So having love and compassion towards yourself is entirely legitimate and helpful. So wishing yourself to be happy and free of problems. And in fact, we can say that you need to have love and compassion for yourself before you can have love and compassion for others. Maybe that's a little bit contentious. Some people disagree with that. We can discuss that. But I think that makes sense. So the idea is by having a clear understanding of how I want to be happy and to be free of problems, in the same way all others are the same in that regard. So they also want to be free of problems and have happiness. And so that's like the basis. That understanding is like the basis upon which we develop the practice of love and compassion. So it's that kind of recognition of our shared experience, and then by understanding how we share that most fundamental experience, how that is our lived experience in our day-to-day life, and we all share that with everyone, and then that develops a feeling of affinity or closeness with other people. So it overcomes a feeling of others being very different, or their situation being very different from ours. We have a tendency to feel when we're having a problem that we feel that I'm the only one who's having this and others don't understand and don't. So we sort of feel excluded. So the practice of that's called equanimity, seeing how oneself and others are equal in having the wish to be happy and to avoid problems. And then based on equanimity, then we can develop love and compassion towards others. So as well as love and compassion, there's another, I guess you'd say, mental attitude, which is also important, which is referred to as, it's normally translated as joy, but it's not. That's not, I think, a very There's not really an equivalent word in English, but it's basically feeling joyful about others' happiness. So that's referred to as joy. There's a Sanskrit word, parudita, I think it is. Anyway, so normally we refer to that as joy, seeing others' happiness and feeling happy about that. So it's similar to love and compassion. But we can also meditate on that, and that's a way of making ourselves happy by focusing on others' happiness. And then these are all, as I said, they're all qualities that we have in our minds: love, compassion, and joy. And we can develop those. So at least in the Buddhist presentation, and I think in probably all spiritual traditions, so the idea is that the mind can be developed. So by creating the causes in our mind, we can develop these qualities further. So we already have them, but there's a possibility of developing them, making them stronger and more pervasive in our way of thinking, to the point where they totally inform all of our actions and thoughts. That's the idea. So you're starting with compassion for yourself, and then you extend that out to others, so seeing that they're in the same as yourself in wanting to be happy and free of problems. So then the compassion is extended out to others, and perhaps firstly to people who you're close to, and the people who you like, you feel affinity towards. And then you can extend that further to the people who are like strangers, the people you don't know. And then you develop it further to extend it out to even the people who harm you, the people that you normally dislike. So it's a gradual process of developing these attitudes, making them stronger, more powerful through familiarization and through focusing on the causes of them. And then once you've developed that, sort of extended that attitude out towards others, then it's developed further by taking a sense of responsibility. So instead of just thinking, I wish that person could be free of that problem, then you start to think about, what can I do to help them to be free of that problem? So it's taking some responsibility and also taking action towards achieving that. So that's called like active compassion. So the green female figure and the white female figure there is Tara, and Tara represents active compassion, so the compassionate action, whereas Chenrezig, the white male figure there, represents compassion. So there's a distinction drawn between those two. So you trying to develop that sense of responsibility, and then in the Buddhist presentation, the idea is that you come to the conclusion that in my current situation, I'm fairly limited in what I can do to help others. So therefore, I need to develop my qualities, my positive qualities, like more compassion, more energy. You think about the things that stop you from helping others. For example, wisdom. Often we don't know how to help people. So we might think we'd like to help them, but we don't know when we try it can go wrong, because we might make the problem worse. So we need wisdom. And we also need energy, because often we say, I feel like you'd like to help somebody, you just feel too tired. You've got having enough trouble managing your own life without trying to help others. And so we develop these inner with the purpose of wanting to help others. So this is the idea of bodhicitta, which you might have heard of. So this is a very central theme, particularly in Mahayana Buddhism. So the idea is that you're wanting to develop these qualities in order to become enlightened, or to develop them to their maximum extent. So developing qualities of wisdom and compassion and energy and power, so that you can help others to the greatest extent possible. So that's the idea of bodhicitta. So that's like the compassion developed to its greatest extent, at least in the the Buddhist presentation. So that's the idea. So we have love and compassion and joy, and they're qualities that we can develop by focusing on the causes of them and familiarizing them with our mind. So are you happy with those definitions? Any questions about those? Love, compassion and joy. So then I thought I'd just mention a few, I think often there's misconceptions about those ideas. I remember I used to have this feeling that people who are very kind and compassionate, that I admired them, but I had this feeling like, I just wasn't like that. That's really great that they can do that, but I don't think I can really do that. And also feeling like that they are sacrificing their happiness for others. So I think that's a common misconception, is that the practice of kindness, love and compassion actually means sacrificing your own happiness in order to help others. So I think that's a misconception, because the practices of love and compassion are actually something that bring a lot of joy and happiness to your own mind and to your own life, and also serve as the direct antidote or solution to a lot of the problems that we experience. Because if we think about the various problems that we experience, it's fairly easy to see how many of them relate back to this what we call self-centered attitude. For example, dispute with others. You can see how that arises from having focusing on I, overly focused on I, and not having full appreciation, or not having the kind of space or flexibility or expansive attitude in which to tolerate others and feel and not get upset by them. Having that kind of patience and strength of mind. So I think that's one misconception. Do you agree? I remember I was thinking, like in my education as a child, and I think we were sort of taught to be kind, but there was never really any explanation about why. It was just sort of an idea that it was good to be nice, and which is fine, entirely legitimate, I would say. But I think it can become more powerful if it's clearly explained why it's beneficial to be kind, and to also to have that attitude of kindness and compassion and love. And I think they are qualities that we naturally admire in other people. When we come across people who are kind, especially kind to us, we naturally feel appreciative and respectful, admiration towards those qualities. But there's this tendency, I think, to think that it's quite a difficult thing to do, and that those people are somehow sacrificing their own happiness for others. Anyway, these are all ideas I think that we can investigate, and we should investigate, or I encourage you to, and see whether you agree with that. And so we can do that through meditation. So if we meditate on love and compassion and see whether that has a positive effect on your mind or not. So we'll do some meditation now. So as you know, meditation is generally divided into concentration and analytical meditation. So we start by doing concentration meditation. So we'll focus on the breath. The idea is to focus your mind on one neutral object, to stop your mind discursive thoughts, your mind jumping from one thought to another. So we're trying to focus on one mental object. So we'll focus on the breath, and then we'll do like a visualization on love and compassion, and I'll talk you through that. So firstly, just sit in a posture which is comfortable, but also one that helps you to concentrate, to remain alert. And so we're trying to be alert but also relaxed. Normally helps to have your eyes closed. Feel free to tell me if you can't hear, if I'm missing the microphone. So normally have your eyes closed, but also slightly open to let some light in, which stops you from getting sleepy. And back straight also helps to keep your mind alert. And then just think about your body, just be aware of your body, and relax your body, let go of any tension. And then bring your awareness to your breath. And just observe your breath moving in and out. As you breathe out, you can imagine that you're expelling any stress or agitation. Just making your mind peaceful and clear. And then we focus particularly on the point just under the tip of our nose, on the sensation of the breath moving in and out past that point. So that gives us a fine point to focus on. So then start to count your breaths, moving in and out. So breathing in and out is one breath. And just try to keep track of your breaths, just count them. And if you lose count, then start again. So in concentration meditation we use mindfulness to remember the object. So mindfulness is keeping the object in mind, which is the breath. And alertness or introspection is observing the concentration to see whether our mind has wandered off. So we use these two, mindfulness and alertness, to keep our mind focused on the breath. If you lose track, just go back to start counting again from 1. So the idea is to keep your mind relaxed and your body relaxed, but also alert. And can it be helpful to think of your mind as being vast and clear like the sky, but also focused on that point of concentration. Okay, so now our minds have developed some concentration, a bit more calm and focused. So then we can use that concentration to focus on the topic, which is love and compassion. So the first step is to meditate on equanimity. So firstly, contemplate that I, myself, my main occupation or my main wish is to be happy and to be free of problems. So this is what I'm mostly occupied by and have been all my life. So of course we also work towards the happiness of those around us. But I think you could agree that our primary occupation is with keeping this self happy. And you think of all the things that you have done in pursuit of happiness throughout your life, and also done to avoid problems. So that includes psychological problems and physical problems and relationship problems, work problems. So all the things that financial all the things that we do to maintain happiness and avoid problems. And yet, even though we spend most of our time in this pursuit, we still do experience various problems and difficulties, and do not always achieve the happiness that we're seeking. And then you contemplate that all other beings, starting with those close to you, are in the same situation, in that they also, their primary occupation is seeking happiness and avoiding problems. And they have also been spending their whole life in pursuit of this, day and night, even in our dreams. So on this very fundamental level, we have this shared experience. I and all others are exactly the same in this regard, and we even share this with animals. So the purpose of this meditation on equanimity is to feel that I and others are equal in this way, and it overcomes the attitude of holding some people close and others distant, the feeling that some people are somehow better or more deserving of your love, perhaps. So the idea is to develop a more even or equanimous feeling towards all beings. So you try to extend this attitude out to include as many people as possible. And also the people that you don't like. For example, some politicians, they also are trying to be happy and to avoid suffering. And you think how they also are, even though spending every moment trying to be happy and avoid suffering, they are also experiencing various problems. Mental problems, physical problems, relationship problems, money problems, work problems. So they are also experiencing all of those in the same way that we are. So then we meditate on the attitude of love by thinking how good it would be if all beings, myself and all others, were free of problems. Sorry, had happiness. Love means wishing others to be happy. how good it would be if all beings were happy. And then you think of compassion, how good it would be if myself and all others were free of suffering, of all of their problems. And you could repeat that to yourself silently while you're meditating. May all beings be happy, may all beings be free of suffering. Just as a way of focusing your mind on those two thoughts. And don't forget to include yourself in those thoughts. So again, you try to extend this feeling or wish out towards as many people as you can, starting with those close to you and then including people who are strangers and also people that you don't like. So that's like the wishing or aspiring compassion or bodhicitta. And then we take that further by taking action. So you visualize that from your heart is a light radiating out, and it's going out to all beings, and it's pervading, it's like a blissful energy which is coming out from your heart, and it's pervading their body and mind, and completely removing all of their problems and filling them with the happiness that they wish for. And if you think of people who you know have a particular problem, for example, a health problem, that light is completely removing that health problem and giving them perfect health. So the purpose of this visualization is just to familiarize your mind with the idea or feeling of helping others. So I think it gives us confidence and to have that feeling that we can actually help others, and and also the idea that it's enjoyable. So this feeling of helping others, freeing them from their problems, imagining them becoming free of their problems is actually a joyful experience. So then you end the meditation by visualizing that the light withdraws back into your heart, and all beings and yourself have reached a state of happiness, completely free of problems. So then you can meditate on the attitude of joy, thinking how excellent it would be, or it is, if others feel joy and happiness and freedom from problems. So you can focus your mind on that feeling of joy. Even if it's in regard to just one other being, for example, someone who's close to you, imagining them being free of some serious problem that they have, like health problem. Okay, so we'll stop the meditation there. Okay, any comments or questions or complaints about that meditation? Mm-hmm. So I think you can see how a visualization like that serves the purpose of familiarizing your mind with those attitudes. It gives you an idea of what they are, I think. And so some people might object that it's just a visualization, and you're sort of, it might make you feel good, but it's not really helping anyone, which is a fair comment. But I think the the idea here is that by familiarizing your mind with these attitudes of love and compassion, and developing confidence in your ability to have them, and they become more and more part of your way of thinking, and so they arise more easily in your mind, and then they will influence and affect your actions and your speech. So you will become more helpful to others by having those attitudes. I was thinking another something that people often raise when we're talking about love and compassion is this, I think, kind of fear that the practices of love and compassion are asking you to be completely passive, requiring you to be completely passive. So I think that's also a misconception about the practice of love and compassion. So the idea is not at all that being loving and compassionate is just letting anyone do whatever they want to you, for example, harming you. It wouldn't be compassion at all to allow people to behave badly towards you or to anyone else. So it's not a completely a practice of being completely passive and letting people walk over you. So you would be a compassionate action could be defending your own rights as well as the rights of others. But you would do that in a compassionate way. And compassionate action can extend into any sphere of life or a society. So you can have compassionate political action, for example, compassionate environmental action. So the idea is to have this attitude of wanting to help others and to free them from suffering, and then being motivated by that, taking action which helps to achieve those goals. And you might have seen in some Buddhist paintings they have these like fierce deities or fierce Buddhas with fangs and muscles and flames. And so the idea of those fierce deities is that compassion can also be fierce. So what does that mean? So motivated by compassion, wanting to help others, you could take very strong action. For example, strong action against someone harming somebody else. An analogy is often given of a child who's about to run onto the road, and the parent will scream at the child in a very angry and forceful way, a loud and forceful way. And that's a compassionate action to stop the child from hurting themselves. But its motivation is compassion, but its manifestation is fierce and even frightening to the child. So compassion can have that aspect as well. It's not just one of being very gentle and passive. And I think you might agree that when you encounter people who are really angry towards you, for example, that it can be more helpful to stand up and oppose them than to be sort of quiet and gentle and just quietly take their anger or their insults. I'd be interested to know what you think. But I've found in my experience that when I encounter someone who's really angry with me, it's often not really helpful just to stay calm and quiet and just accept their harsh words, but better to respond to them and sort of engage in an exchange with them, even in a forceful way, by pointing out why you disagree with what they're saying, how what they're saying is wrong. But you could do that in a compassionate way. So your motivation for doing that is not to get revenge, it's not to win the argument, it's just to pacify the situation and maintain your relationship with them, and also help them to calm down. So that could be compassionate action, that's another example. So being completely gentle and passive may not always be helpful. Some people might find that highly irritating if you're always gentle and passive. So, and do you remember that comedy, The Black Books? And there was one guy in it who accidentally swallowed the Little Book of Calm, so he was always calm. And I said, "Why are you so calm?" I swallowed the Little Book of Calm. And it was sort of like really irritating. Yeah. So that's the idea of fierce compassion. But we have to be careful with that, because fierce compassion could actually just be getting angry and calling yourself being compassionate, but it's not actually compassion. So you need to be careful about your motivation, why you're doing this. Okay. So we've still got 15 minutes. So tonight I wanted to cover, firstly, becoming clear about what love, compassion and joy are. I think we're clear about those. And also the idea that they can be developed, that we have them, but they can be developed sort of infinitely. And in the various spiritual traditions, you have the idea of like saints, or in Buddhism it's bodhisattvas. So they are these beings who have developed through meditation, familiarizing their mind with compassion, developed compassion to a sort of unimaginable extent, where they're willing to give away everything for others, and even their bodies. There's stories of people giving up their lives in order to save others, sacrificing their lives. So that idea is generally kind of terrifying to someone like me, at least. The idea of giving up everything, all my possessions and my life for someone else. But I could probably imagine it maybe doing it for my children, like sacrificing my life for my kids to save them, maybe. But the idea is that through familiarization and developing these attitudes, that they become stronger and stronger, and to the point where giving up something for others would actually become joyful. So in those stories, the saints and bodhisattvas who give up their lives, they're saying they do it joyfully. It's not actually a problem at all for them, and that's through gradually developing those qualities. So we're generally a long way off from that, but you can see the idea. So you're not being asked to suffer in order to help others, but rather to develop these qualities so that helping others becomes joyful. That's the point I'm trying to make. So I think often people sort of feel fearful, that these spiritual traditions are asking me to give up my happiness, give up the things I enjoy, in order to achieve enlightenment, in order to help others. So I think that's a misconception. So the idea is that by developing practices of love and compassion, that you're the main beneficiary of those, particularly in the beginning. And then later on, as you develop them further, then you're more able to help others. That's the idea. So Dalai Lama calls it intelligent selfishness. So he says, if you really want to be selfish and help yourself, the best way is to develop love and compassion, because that is the way to make your mind the most happy and peaceful. So maybe I'll just mention a little bit about the benefits of love and compassion. So because our minds are generally very familiar with this self-centered attitude, that's sort of how we naturally feel. And the practices of love and compassion, I think, are a bit daunting and frightening to our self-centered mind. So because of that reason, then we need to be very clear about what the benefits of these practices are. So you might have experienced a bit in that meditation that your mind can feel happy and peaceful by developing those attitudes. So that's one of the benefits. You experience that through meditation. So then your mind becomes more and more interested in developing those qualities because they feel good, because they make you happy. But then also you can see how they're helpful to others and stop you from harming others. So we need to be very clear about the benefits of practices like love and compassion, and put in quite a lot of time and energy, I think, in constantly reminding ourselves of the benefits. Because sort of on an intellectual level we can say, oh yeah, that sounds good, I can kind of see how that works, and I've sort of enjoyed that in meditation. But our minds just naturally revert back to the self-centered attitude, which is like an obstacle to compassion. So we need to have that sort of clear understanding of how these practices are beneficial for ourselves and others, in order to develop the kind of courage and energy, I think, to overcome that natural tendency towards being self-centered. So I think one of the most compelling, please stop me as I go along. If you have questions, put up your hand. I'll just keep rabbiting on. So one of the most compelling, I find, benefits of the practices of love and compassion is it directly counteracts this self-centered attitude. And for me at least, I can see how most of the problems I've experienced in my life have arisen because of that focus on I, that sort of overly self-centered attitude. As I said, for example, disputes in conflict in relationships, because I'm feeling that my needs or my view or my idea is more important to the other person's. Because I can't tolerate, because of pride. So pride is sort of like wanting yourself to always come out of a situation looking good. Sort of like we're always trying to negotiate the world so that this self always comes out looking good. And which is a constant battle, of course, and not really achievable. But so pride, I think, actually causes us a lot of problems. And so if someone, like road rage, for example, if someone cuts you off, and you just feel like they're completely disrespecting you and putting your life in danger, and you feel like they're it can be a huge insult, and you see people just losing it in a road rage. So they're feeling offended and affronted, and that the person is putting them down, and the other person's putting their own welfare above yours. These kind of ideas, and it's completely intolerable for someone to treat us like that. So this is the kind of feeling that this I has to always be treated with respect, and sort of has to always look like competent and successful, these kind of things. Maybe it's just me, I don't know. Sometimes I think maybe I'm the only one who feels like that. But anyway, I think that's the idea of pride. So for me at least, I think pride is, and when I get angry, I think it's often related to pride. You know, like in a work situation, and you might be in a meeting and someone sort of dismisses your idea, a bit dismissive of you and puts you down and trying to promote their idea, and you sort of get affronted, you know, like, how dare you? Sort of that kind of... So you can see how it's very all related to I. You want this I to come out of that meeting looking good and be the winner. This I is the one that had the good idea, etc. And got respect from people in the room, that kind of feeling. So that's pride, and that's, you can see how that arises from this concern about this oneself. So it's not to say that makes you a bad person, or you know that you're somehow evil, or it's just, the idea is just to see how that attitude is causing these problems. That's all it is. And you think of other various problems, even health problems. You know, like you know, having eating unhealthy food. You know, so wanting to overeat, for example, or wanting to eat food that you know is not good for you because you have that strong craving for that thing. So again, that arises from strong self sense of I. You know, focus on this self. I got to have that thing. Must have that now. The second packet of Tim Tams. So it's, you can see how that again comes in with a strong feeling of I. So these practices of love and compassion are a direct antidote to all of those problems and the cause of all those problems. So in that way, they're kind of like a panacea, like the solution to all of those problems. So for me, that's the most compelling argument for why you would practice compassion. Of course, I can see how, when I do practice it, it does make me a better person to live with for my family and friends. So I can see that. But the main beneficiary, I think, in the beginning is yourself, because it stops that, reduces that sort of sense of overly focusing on this one I and all the problems that arise from that. So maybe ask you a question. Do you agree that many of your problems arise from the self-centered attitude? If you think of various problems you've experienced throughout your life, do you think that's a fair diagnosis, or about the... Yes. Yes. Would you care to elaborate on any examples? You don't have to.
Yeah, and now I see it's stupid. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you can control your ego, you are a king.
So when you say ego, do you think that means is that the self-centered mind? Do you think that's kind of like the same thing? It's yeah, I'll just self-centered, like having this self as the center of the universe. I think is the idea, is center of your universe, and kind of like the most important thing. So it's. Yeah.
I didn't thought of it. I just stopped it's like
Yeah.
So, like it's like coming and going.
Yeah.
You have to learn to control it.
Yeah.
Yeah, to understand that it's wrong.
Well, wrong in the sense that it creates a lot of problems for us and for others. So, so I'm trying to make the point that I don't think you should think of yourself as a bad person because you have those things. Think I'm so bad because I have this self-centered attitude and I'm getting angry with my loved ones, because I think that's not really helpful. And also, it's not like we've really chosen to be like that. It's just that we have this kind of habit of thinking of a preoccupation with self being most important. So I think we need to be sort of, again, compassionate with ourselves, because we didn't ask to have this self-centered attitude. It's just something that we have. And also that can help you to be compassionate with others who also have the same thing. So you see, in the same way as I get angry with people I love and flare up, so they also do the same thing. So that helps you to, develop compassion and affinity with others, I think.
I think the word is stupidity.
Well, in Buddhism, the main two things we're trying to develop are compassion and wisdom. So the opposite of wisdom would, normally use the word ignorance or wrong view. So we have this wrong view that looking after this self all the time is the best way to make ourselves happy. And people even say that, I couldn't possibly practice compassion, I've got enough to do trying to keep myself happy. So that's a misunderstanding, that actually trying to keep yourself happy in every situation and spending all of your energy and time and effort trying to keep this one self happy is actually having the opposite effect. So I think this is an important point in this practice. As the Dalai Lama says, the best way to make yourself happy is to practice love and compassion. So you can see how you're forgetting about this self, letting go of that, and immediately relaxes this preoccupation, this kind of obsession with this one person, and makes your mind much more expansive and vast and focused on all beings. So that's the idea. So one Lama was saying that eventually when you're practicing generosity, it's hard to tell whether you're giving or receiving. So you can sort of see how that might be the case. If you're practicing generosity and making others happy and you're getting a lot of joy from it, that your mind could be experiencing this joy, and it's not really clear whether you're giving or receiving. It's sort of like it's both, So I think we can get an idea of how that could be possible by developing this kind of attitudes of love, compassion, joy, generosity. Yeah. Sorry, another question over here. Sorry, yeah.
I think the obsession with self, or the preoccupation with self, creates a sense of separation. We can see that as part of some of the underlying problems that we have in materialistic, individualistic, capitalistic type of society. And you can see that with kind of the bushfires and particularly what the majority of the community doing stuff for collective good, and how much the spirit of generosity and the uprising of doing something for something beyond yourself actually uplifts yourself and your community. And I think that regression to that self-obsession actually entrenches that sense of difference and separateness and loneliness. And when we actually work for the good and the compassion of others, it lifts us to a place which gives us a sense of meaning and purpose, and sort of what we do for us humans.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I totally agree with that idea that these practices break down that strong feeling of being separate from others, that kind of like aloneness. I think loneliness is a big problem. And I remember one woman saying that she was doing a meditation retreat and experiencing a lot of loneliness, and what's the solution? And the teacher said, just practice compassion. So you're focusing on others instead of on self, and also think of other people who are experiencing loneliness, in the same way as you are. So yeah, I totally agree. Yeah. Yeah, yep, definitely. So I think another good point is that we're naturally social beings, I think. So it's very hard for us to be happy entirely alone. And so the practices of love and compassion, as well as making our minds feeling much more close to others, it also improves our relationships. So that naturally makes our lives much easier, because having good relationships with all the people in your life makes your life so much easier. Yeah. There's an idea of being a friend of the world. So the Bodhisattva is like a friend of the world. So seeing everyone you encounter is like a friend. Just you feel close to them, like familiar affinity. Yeah. Yes, so we probably should finish soon. People need to go. But yes, sorry, one last comment.
Is it possible that all this suffering, because then you were mentioning the fires, the suffering of the region that people here, they're suffering?
Yes.
Of the region, like people killed and slaughtered when the European came here.
Yes.
Is it possible that that energy created now the fires? That
Ooh, yeah.
energy that is suffering?
Yeah. The energy. Sorry, is that there you go? The energy went somewhere. Mm. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. I think, like the Buddhist view, at least, it would not be entirely. I couldn't really say what the answer to that is. So Buddhism does have an idea of collective karma, and I remember, for example, when Australia got involved in the Vietnam War, and there was one Lama saying, "Well, we're all paying taxes towards the government's spending those taxes on weapons and killing people overseas. So we do experience, this is a Buddhist idea of karma, so we will experience some karma from that, collective karma. And so I guess, as we all know, this Australian history of white settlement has involved a lot of causing devastation to the indigenous communities and enormous suffering, and I guess we're sort of beneficiaries to some extent from that settlement. So then maybe we experience some karma from that. But I couldn't say what the Buddhist view on that is, whether the fires would be a result of that. Yeah. Anyway, so thank you very much for listening, and please consider what love and compassion and joy are, and maybe try that meditation and come back with your questions. So thank you.